Translator, Reverie. Editor, Kurisu. From the instant Zhuxuan stepped forth and used her own body to bar that killing strike for him, Linghan had already placed her among his friends. Zhuxuan, by all appearances, did not seem like the sort who could not keep her lips sealed. Thus, he only paused for the briefest moment before speaking. "It's inside my spatial spirit tool." Zhuxuan first froze on the spot. Then her eyes widened in sheer disbelief as she blurted, "How could that be possible? Spatial spirit tools cannot hold living things." Linghan's lips curved as he replied, "Aren't you inside it right now?" Zhuxuan stood there stunned for a long time before she finally swallowed this truth. Then she continued, still shaken, "But how can this spatial spirit tool be so vast? This is nearly a world." "That is precisely why this secret cannot be known by others," Linghan said. His tone turning solemn, Zhuxuan hurriedly nodded. A spatial spirit tool that was almost boundlessly immense and could contain living beings. Its worth was simply beyond madness. No wonder Linghan had guarded this secret from the very beginning. Yet now Linghan had allowed her to touch this secret. In that instant, she felt as though she had tasted honey, sweetness flowing straight down into the depths of her heart. "Xuaner will absolutely keep this secret," she also said, her voice stern and resolute. "Put your heart into recuperating. There is plenty of spirit medicine here. Use the origin crystals as you please. First recover the injury to your soul, or else you won't be able to cultivate at all." Linghan said, "Yes." Zhuxuan nodded meekly. She no longer wore a veil, revealing a remarkably delicate face, so breathtaking that Linghan felt his heartbeat quicken. Fortunately, in his former life, he had long been accustomed to the beauty of the heavenly phoenix Divine Maiden. Otherwise, he truly might have been bewitched by this lass. Linghan did not immediately leave the Black Tower. After leaving the Divine Temple, he had been delayed by all manner of affairs along the way, and had not had the chance to study these two pieces of patterned beast bones, as well as the two other gods' corpses. Within the Black Tower, he no longer feared the coercive pressure of the gods and began to examine them in detail. These two gods' corpses appeared intact, but the divine essence within had been drained dry, clearly all devoured by the blood-sucking bugs over that long passage of time. Could gods' bones, ground into powder, be added into medicine? Linghan muttered, "Although they aren't humans, they are in human form, and refining human bones into medicine feels quite disgusting. Forget it, leave it for now." He lifted the two beasts' skulls and scrutinized the two bone patterns carefully. If he could comprehend the profundities within, then his battle prowess would rise by a great margin. A night flowed by. As the second stage's test was about to begin, Linghan left the Black Tower. "Those who wish to participate in the test, go in. All who can walk out will receive a reward. The top 3 will receive a great prize," the formation spirit proclaimed. The less time taken, the better the reward. Everyone's blood surged with excitement. In the first stage, only the top 3 had received rewards, but in this stage, all who passed could obtain a reward. Its difficulty likely rose by no small amount. They all entered that building, and the scene before their eyes instantly shifted into a land thick with mist. Around them stood stone pillars, carved with all kinds of engraved patterns. So many had entered at once, yet now each person stood alone, no longer able to see anyone else. "Formations," Linghan said. So the second stage was formations. Resolve the formation and leave it, and that would count as passing. The fastest would receive the most generous rewards. He began to circle within the formation. The mist churned like steaming waves, and Hong, suddenly a beast formed and lunged toward him. He cleaved it apart with a single strike, yet not a drop of blood splashed forth. It was something manifested by the formation, not a true entity. Judging from the beast's strength, this should be a 5th-tier formation that mainly confuses the mind, with auxiliary effects that create beasts from spiritual qi. Linghan quickly saw through the formation's secrets. It was likely adjusted according to each individual's tier. Otherwise, if a flower blossom tier beast entered, how would this formation hold it back? The prerequisite to resolving a formation was the ability to endure its attacks. Otherwise, if one's life was gone, then what formation would there be left to resolve? Linghan's mind remained clear as still water. In his previous life, He had ventured through countless historic sites and was not lacking in understanding of formations. In setting up formations, he was certainly a novice, but in resolving formations, he was a seasoned veteran. Before long, he gained an inkling and moved within the formation, sometimes left, sometimes right, appearing almost random. Yet after only 10 minutes, the world ahead abruptly opened and brightened. He had stepped out of the formation. However, he was not the first. Who Knew was already in front of him, gnawing meat in boredom. The moment she saw Ling Han, she ran over joyfully, and without caring about her oily hands at all, she hugged him and said, "New missed you." Ling Han smiled and asked, "When did New arrive?" "It seems like a long while," Hu Knew said, nibbling on her fingers. "This little girl is very strange." The formation spirit appeared, pointing at Hu Knew as it said, "I have never seen such a person who wasn't affected by the formation in the slightest degree, and who moved without following the formation's rules, yet still walked out of the formation." Ling Han was astonished. When he had left the formation earlier, he had walked in accordance with how the formation was laid out. He definitely had not walked in a straight line, but instead circled back and forth like wandering through a maze. Yet the formation spirit's meaning was that Hu Knew had not followed the formation at all and had simply run straight out. This was truly shocking. "New is a genius," Hu Knew said, pleased with herself. "Whether you're a genius or not, I don't know, but you were definitely first this time. You broke all the records," the formation spirit said. "You may choose a treasure as your reward." Ling Han was swift on his feet and said, "New, ask him for 9 Dragons Tyrant body art." "Okay." Hu Knew agreed in a clear, loud voice. "New wants 9 Dragons Tyrant body art. Give it to Ling Han." The formation spirit glanced at Ling Han, then said to Hu Knew, "Such a precious chance, and you're giving it to others?" "New's just that willful," Hu Knew said, not caring in the least, hands planted on her hips. The formation spirit fell silent, then tossed a ball of light toward Ling Han and said, "You're lucky. Otherwise, with your record, it would be impossible to obtain this part of the art." Ling Han laughed and pressed the ball of light to his forehead. In an instant, countless flickers of light poured into his consciousness, merging with his previous 9 Dragons Tyrant body art. Now, if he cultivated it to the utmost limit, his physical body could reach the strength of 6 true dragons. However, for the moment, Ling Han was only second place. The second stage's test would last an entire day. It was possible someone had only just arrived and begun the test, so his record would only be confirmed after this day ended. One person after another walked out. These formations were not overly difficult, not enough to truly stump genuine geniuses. Resolving them was only a matter of time. A day quickly passed. As expected, Ling Han's position remained second, while third place was actually Lin Xiangqin. "Didn't expect it, huh? This lady's breasts may be big, but her brain is also quick." This girl winked at Ling Han and thrust out her magnificent chest, still acting provocatively. Ling Han was allowed to choose 3 types of medicinal pills as his reward, which made him gloomy. What medicinal pill couldn't he refine? He would rather receive a book on the essence of formations. He tried to bargain with the formation spirit to exchange for other rewards, but was coldly rejected. "How stubborn," he complained inwardly. Though he held little fondness for medicinal pills as a reward, Ling Han would not squander the opportunity, and thus he chose a pill. The grade of the 3 pills before him was in truth not low. By a stroke of coincidence, one of them was precisely the Hidden Tiger Heavenly Luck pill, so Ling Han reached out and took that one. As for the other 2, they were pills meant to aid a breakthrough, Heaven Tier. Ling Han had no need of such assistance, and besides he could refine them himself, so he passed them over. In any case, when those at his side stepped into Deity Transformation Tier, he should not be lacking in ingredients to concoct such pills. This was also a reward for Jushuan. There is one last test ahead. Those who can make it there within 10 days will have qualified to take the test. The formation spirit continued. Every person who passed through the formation received a reward, but aside from the top 3, the rewards were hardly worth speaking of. Everyone departed, and even those who had not passed the formation were released as well. This did not affect their qualifications to head toward the 3rd stage. The key was whether or not they could reach the 3rd stage. Much like the forest that led to the second stage, terrifying beasts watched the route, culling a portion of the people. The 5 of them set out too, and since 2 portions of the 9 Dragons Tyrant body art were already in hand, Linghan naturally yearned all the more to seize the last portion and complete the entire art. As he hastened along the road, he began to study this art. Unlike ordinary arts, the 9 Dragons Tyrant body art did not cultivate origin power. Instead, it excavated the hidden potential of the human body to the utmost, strengthening blood, flesh, veins, and sinews, and in the end, smashing through the mortal limit, becoming a god through flesh alone. To cultivate this art was, in truth, rather simple. First, devour as many worldly treasures and tonic supplements as possible. Second, cultivate with everything one had, wringing out the body's limits until nothing remained unforced. This demanded a mighty physique, or else one could not withstand such terrifying bodily strength. It was like a man of clay. Though its punch might carry over 10,000 pounds of force, if it struck a wall, the wall might shatter. Yet the clay man itself would collapse as well. But if it were a golem, then that same punch would certainly break the wall, while the golem remained intact. For Linghan, the 9 Dragons Tyrant body art seemed as though it had been tailored for him. He cultivated the indestructible Heaven Scroll, and the toughness of his physique was comparable to rare metals of the same tier. If he advanced another step into Diamond tier, it would become even more horrifying. With such a body as foundation, cultivating this art would yield twice the result with half the effort. However, he had no time to cultivate at present, for they were hurrying onward. The formation spirit had actually granted 10 days this time, which meant the road would be either extraordinarily long or brimming with danger, and they would stumble through countless hardships before reaching the end. Before long, the flatlands vanished, and no road remained ahead. Instead, stones floated in mid-air, layered higher and higher, rising until they vanished into the end of the heavens. The third stage, could it be in the sky? It certainly looks like it. Is this a ladder to heaven? Ha, this counts as a ladder? Everyone felt this stage was hardly a test at all, because Flower Blossom tier warriors could fly. Even if they could not fly to the top in one breath, there were floating stones along the way for them to pause and rest. Let's test it. Linghan sprang upward, yet his expression changed at once. With that leap, he discovered the gravity here was abnormally heavy. Originally, he could leap at least several hundred feet, but now it was barely 5. Fortunately, he still landed upon a floating stone. The strange thing was that once he stood on the floating stone, the gravity returned to normal, and no added weight pressed upon him. Apparently, this gravity existed to prevent Flower Blossom tier warriors from flying, and at the same time to increase the difficulty of advancing. It should also vary according to tier, or else it would lose all meaning. All of you come up, this road likely won't be easy to walk, he said. This was somewhat like the city gate of the first stage, except there the obstructive force was layered, while here the terror lay in the gravity itself. The key was that the formation spirit had said it was enough to arrive within 10 days. What did that imply? The road was damn long. Thus, this tested endurance and willpower. Otherwise, under such crushing gravity, who could maintain their pace for 10 full days? One by one, everyone jumped up. Some people failed to leap high enough and had to jump again, and this was only the first layer of floating stones. The rows of floating stone steps had no visible end, so no one knew how far the path extended. If there were an end in sight, then at least everyone would have a goal etched in their minds, something to strive toward. But what lay before their eyes, a road without end, with only forward motion, was unbearably difficult. It could easily make people lose heart and abandon their tenacity. Everyone began to advance. At the start, they were fierce, leaping over the floating steps one after another. But after only 10 minutes, their speed slowed more and more, sweat already soaking down their backs. Linghan remained relaxed. He could have stored Lu Yutong and the others into the Black Tower and carried them straight to the top. Yet he did not, because in his view, this was an excellent chance to temper oneself. Those who could walk to the end within 10 days, regardless of martial arts talent, would at least prove they possessed a heart that never retreated. This was an indispensable quality on the road toward the pinnacle of martial arts. Thus, Ling Han did not wait for the others. He deployed his movement arts and climbed upward at speed. Even flower blossom tier cultivators could only jump step by step here. Moreover, the higher the tier, the greater the gravitational force endured, stripping away any advantage. This trial was more about willpower than cultivation. Ling Han soon left everyone behind, and the only one who kept pace with him was Hu Nu. This little girl's speed was clearly suppressed as well, yet she was still swift. At the very least, she was no slower than Ling Han. Jumping without end, jumping until exhaustion, then they rested upon the floating rocks, meditated, and absorbed spiritual chi to recover. This was greatly beneficial for increasing one's cultivation. Ling Han had eaten many precious things, and there had been too little time for many of them to display their effects, so they had accumulated within his body. Now, under extreme exertion, his body operated under excessive burden, and at last those hidden effects were forced forth. After completing his cultivation, Ling Han began to cultivate the 9 Dragons Tyrant Body Art. This art could only be cultivated for 1 hour each day, and no more. Exceeding the limit would instead harm the body. Furthermore, during the cultivation process, blood, flesh, veins, and bones would absorb vast amounts of energy and essence. If there were not enough worldly treasures to keep up, then one would only overdraw oneself. Ling Han cultivated now, because the essences of the treasured medicines amassed within his body were all released through intense exercise. If he did not cultivate the 9 Dragons Tyrant Body Art at this moment, it would truly be a great waste. He assumed a strange posture, and in an instant, ka-ka-ka, the bones throughout his body crackled. He nearly bent himself into an arc, and chi and blood immediately could not circulate smoothly. The pain was so fierce he almost spat blood. The 9 Dragons Tyrant Body Art's initial stage had a total of 12 such styles of posture. Before obtaining the second portion of the art, there had only been 6 styles, and evidently, the completed Tyrant Body Art likely had 18 styles.